The reason I'm here because I'm going to talk about another zombie movie, The Walking Dead. My title is The Different Adaptation from The Walking Dead in TV series and comics. But we know that just the beginning scene of scene remark of the comic books. The TV series take the setting and the character and add in new event and characters while removing others. Having Kirkman, Moore, and others working on the series helps as they can try out ideas they had for the comic but could not implement. For example, in Season 1, Episode 3, Rick and other survivors have just left one of their own behind in zombie-infested city. This character is Mel Dixon, who does not appear in the comics. Yet his inclusion and interaction with Rick in the previous episode allowed the audience an example of the behavior we can expect from Rick. He remained calm and at gunpoint and used his wit to turn the table on Merles without inflicting any major damage. As the TV series creates more moments where the survivor face off against the living, the audience needs this character-defining moment as a guide to predict how Rick will act in the future. Then I want to talk about another main character, about Steven Yeun. He acts as a Glenn in the TV series. Glenn is a survivor first encountered in issue 2 of Image Comics, The Walking Dead, and a member of the original Atlantis survivor group, and a civilian who had survived mysterious undead apocalypse that has swept the planet. After leaving Atlanta, he met Maggie Green and eventually married her. However, in TV series, after leaving Atlanta, he met Maggie in his father's Herschel's farm and doing whatever is necessary to keep her safe. Glenn's love for Maggie and his close bond with her father, Herschel Green, led Glenn to become less of the group canary in the coal mine and more of his own voice. Upon Herschel's death, Glenn pledged to take over his role as a conscience and hope, which involved decisions like protecting Tara Chandler in spite of her ties to the governor and to attack the prison scenes. Now to talk more about Glenn's love to the Maggie. Here's a quote: "You don't need to hide anything from me. I love you. I love you. Not that flirty girl I met at the farmhouse. Not the sex machine I live with at the prison. You, every flow, every quick. I love you, everything about you. Everything that makes you, you. I love you, Maggie," says to Maggie. And they also decide to start a family of their own after a survival month of trying. Maggie discovers to their delight and she is pregnant. Glenn is her rock when she feels tremendous heartache pain. As such, Maggie is Glenn's only true light and does all he can to love and care for her. This scene is full effect when he cries her name as he's being beaten to death. But in the TV series, we know the Glenn is getting ill in the prison, and the Maggie, because the Herschel don't want them to infect each other, so they separate into a different room. And Maggie take care of Glenn and waiting for the other groups to take back the medicine. And when the Glenn's recovering, the governor attacked the prisons. And in the end, we know that Maggie put Glenn on the bus. However, Glenn came back to find Maggie, so they are separated. Just as Glenn and Chandler also about to be killed by workers in a decaying tunnel, Maggie and her group find them. Maggie and Glenn have an emotional reunion, with Maggie burning the photograph he had taken of her in the guard told shortly before the Ferraz hit, saying he will never need a photo of her again. They and the rest of their combined group make their way to Terminus, where they are soon captured. Then I want to talk about another main character, Rick, in the TV series and the comic books. From the Glenn's perspective, Glenn formed a friendship with Rick very early on. This was perhaps due to Glenn's social nature and being one of the two men of the group who frequently were responsible for the organization of supplies and safety. Glenn was responsible for saving Rick in Atlanta, and later teaming up with him in various other situations for the good of the group. Their close working relationship turned into a strong bond, especially after Rick, and Michonne made it out of the Woodbury. The two evidently showed concern of the others' well-being, and Rick has discussed his fondness of Glenn's risky endeavors to other survivors. Unlike most of the other group's members, Glenn has shown no doubt of Rick, displaying his total support and confidence in him as their leaders. Although he never told Glenn this, Rick often viewed Glenn and Maggie as a symbol of hope, of good things yet to come, which made his death that much more painful for Rick to watch. Overall, Rick admired Glenn for his optimism, remembering how he was the only one who saw something beautiful in the hilltop colony, and for his goodness at heart. His importance to Rick is most visible when Rick witnessed his death, which broke him down to tears and eventual rage at Glenn's killer, Negan. Rick then swears he will avenge Glenn by killing him. In the TV series, Glenn meets Rick when he is most in need and near suicide. He was left alone in the tank after his horse went down in the downtown Atlanta. Despite much secrecy against Rick, Glenn saved his life and would begin to see Rick's bondness, surprising his very own before introducing him to Atlanta group. But ultimately, on reuniting him with his family as time went on, Glenn begged Rick's backbone after camp and during their journey to the Glenn's farm. Oops. So, I want to talk about my conclusion about this TV series and the comics versions. The Walking Dead is at its heart a story about one man, Rick Grimes. Over many volumes of the comic, he is subject to horrors and torture, both physical and psychological. So each member of the cast goes through their own journey of discovering the limit that will go to. The focus is always kept on Rick. But while he is the main character and we know he has what it takes to get through the apocalypse for now. But while the TV series, Rick is still the main character, there's too much time spent on others to really say the show is about him. It is about the group that Rick leads. For all the difference between the comic and TV series, Rick is not different. He may act differently, but he is still the same character. The Walking Dead is a show about people doing things and making decisions. Zombies are just there to provide conflict.